Hi everyone, welcome to Story Time with Miss Lynn. I'm so excited to be back with you today for two wonderful, wonderful books. Again, a couple of my favorites. But let's begin this way today, okay? Story time, story time. Are you ready for story time? Let's take an adventure, let's take a trip. Let's grab a book and zippity step. Let's take an adventure, let's take a trip during our story time. All right, hello friends and good morning and welcome to Story Time with Miss Lynn. Today we're going to start with a Dr. Seuss book. Who loves Dr. Seuss? I do. I know he is wonderful. His books are great. So we're going to start with Horton Hears a Who. Horton Hears a Who, and I hope everyone can see everything well. I don't see. I see Miss Birdie is watching. There we are. All right. Hope everything is looking good because my computer's looking different than it did Monday when I did this. All right. Horton Hears a Who by Dr. Seuss. On the 15th of May, in the jungle of Newell, in the heat of the day, in the cool of the pool, he was splashing, enjoying the jungle's great joys when Horton the elephant heard a small noise. So Horton stopped splashing. He looked toward the sound. That's funny, thought Horton. There's no one around. Then he heard it again, just a very faint yelp, as if some tiny person were calling for help. I'll help you, said Horton, but who are you? Where? He looked and he looked. He could see nothing there but a small speck of dust blowing past through the air. I say, murmured Horton, I've never heard tell of a small speck of dust that is able to yell. So you know what I think? Why, I think that there must be someone on top of that small speck of dust. Some sort of a creature of very small size, too small to be seen by an elephant's eyes. Wow, do you know how small a speck of dust is? Do your fingers like this? Yes, that's how small. Oh my goodness. Some poor little person who's shaking with fear that he'll blow in the pool he has no way to steer. I'll just have to save him because, after all, a person's a person, no matter how small. So gently and using the greatest of care, the elephant stretched his great trunk through the air, and he lifted the dust speck and carried it over and placed it down safe on a very soft clover. He was very, very gentle. Humph! Humphed a voice. 'Twas a sour kangaroo, and the young kangaroo in her pouch said humph too. Why, that speck is as small as the head of a pin. A person on that? Why, there never has been. Oh, goodness. Believe me, said Horton, I tell you sincerely, my ears are quite keen, and I heard him quite clearly. I knew there's a person down there, and what's more, quite likely there's two, even three, even four. Quite likely. A family, for all that we know, a family with children that's just starting to grow. So please, Horton said, as a favor to me, try not to disturb them. Just please let them be. I think you're a fool, laughed the sour kangaroo, and the young kangaroo in her pouch said, me too. You're the biggest blame fool in the jungle of Newell, and the kangaroos plunged in the cool of the pool. What terrible splashing! The elephant frowned. I can't let my very small persons get drowned. I've got to protect them. I'm bigger than they. So he plucked up the clover and hustled away. What does hustling look like? He hustled away. You can move fast, right? You're going to move really, really fast. Through the high jungle treetops, the news quickly spread. He talks to a dust speck. He's out of his head. Just look at him walk with that speck on that flower. And Horton walked, worrying, almost an hour. Should I put this speck down? Horton thought with alarm. If I do, these small persons may come to great harm. I can't put it down, and I won't. After all, a person's a person, no matter how small. Then Horton stopped walking. The speck voice was talking. The voice was so faint he could just barely hear it. Speak up, please, said Horton. He put his ear near it. My friend, came the voice. You're a very fine friend. You've helped all of us folks on this dust speck no end. You've saved all our houses, our ceilings and floors. You've saved all our churches and grocery stores. You mean, Horton gasped, you have buildings there too? Oh yes, piped the voice, we most certainly do. I know, called the voice, I'm too small to be seen, but I'm mayor of a town that is friendly and clean. Our buildings to you would seem terribly small, but to us we aren't big, they are wonderfully tall. My town is called Whoville, for I am a Who, and we Whos are all thankful and grateful to you. And Horton called back to the mayor of the town, you're safe now, don't worry, I won't let you down. But just as he spoke to the mayor of the speck, 3 big jungle monkeys climbed up Horton's neck. The Wickersham brothers came shouting, who's rot? What rot? This elephant's talking to who's, who are not. They aren't any who's, and they don't have a mayor, and we're going to stop all this nonsense. So there. Oh my goodness. They snatched Horton's clover. They carried it off to a black-bottomed eagle named Vladikoff, a mighty strong eagle of very swift wing. And they said, will you kindly get rid of this thing? And before the poor elephant even could speak, that eagle flew off with the flower in his beak. All that late afternoon and far into the night, that black-bottomed bird flapped his wings in fast flight, while Horton chased after with groans over stones that tattered his toenails and battered his bones, and begged, please don't harm all my little folks who have as much right to live as us bigger folks do. But far, far beyond him that eagle kept flapping, and over his shoulder called back, quit your yapping. I'll fly the night through, I'm a bird, I don't mind it, and I'll hide this tomorrow where you'll never find it. Yes, my dog, a while ago, just a minute ago, that was our dog saying hello. And at 6:56 the next morning, he did it. It sure was a terrible place that he hid it. He let that small clover drop somewhere inside of a great patch of clovers 100 miles wide. How's wide? Oh, that's so wide. Find that, sneered the bird, but I think you will fail. And he left with the flip of his black-bottomed tail. Oh, goodness. I'll find it, cried Horton. I'll find it or bust. I shall find my friends on my small speck of dust. And clover by clover by clover with care, that the one that he sought for was just, let me go back because I missed a line. And clover by clover with care, he picked up and searched them and called, "Are you there?" By, but clover by clover, he found that the one that he sought for was just not around. And by noon, poor old Horton, more dead than alive, had picked, searched, and piled up 9,005. Great goodness, that's a huge number. Look at that pile, pile upon pile. Then on through the afternoon, hour after hour, till he found them at last on the 3 millionth flower. Oh, my friends, cried the elephant, tell me, do tell, are you safe? Are you sound? Are you whole? Are you well? Can you imagine searching through all those flowers? From down on the speck came the voice of the mayor. We've really had trouble, much more than our share. When that black-bottomed birdie let go and we dropped, we landed so hard that our clocks have all stopped. Our teapots are broken, our rocking chairs smashed, and our bicycle tires all blew up when we crashed. So Horton, please, pleaded that voice of the mayor's, will you stick by us who's while we're making repairs? Of course, Horton answered, of course I will stick. I'll stick by you small folks through thin and through thick. Humph, humph, a voice. For almost 2 days you've run wild and insisted on chatting with persons who've never existed. Such carryings on in our peaceable jungle, we've had quite enough of your bellowing bungle. And I'm here to state, snapped the big kangaroo, that your silly, nonsensical game is all through. And the young kangaroo in her pouch said, me too. Goodness gracious, the kangaroos are not nice. With the help of the Wickersham brothers and dozens of Wickersham uncles and Wickersham cousins and Wickersham in-laws whose help I've engaged, you're going to be roped and you're going to be caged. And as far as your dust speck, ha, that we shall boil in a hot steaming kettle of bezel nut oil. Boil it, gasped Horton. Oh, that you can't do. It's all full of persons. They'll prove it to you. Mr. Mayor, Horton called. Mr. Mayor, you've got to prove now that you really are there. So call a big meeting, get everyone out, make every who holler, make every who shout, make every who scream. If you don't, every who is going to end up in a bezel nut stew. And down on the dust speck, the scared little mayor quick called a big meeting in Whoville Town Square, and as people cried loudly, they cried out in fear, we are here, we are here, we are here, we are here. The elephant smiled. That was clear as a bell. You kangaroos surely heard that very well. All I heard, snapped the big kangaroo, was the breeze and the faint sound of wind through the far distant trees. I heard no small voices, and you didn't either. And the young kangaroo in her pouch said, me either. Grab him, they shouted, and caged the big dope. Lasso his stomach with 10 miles of rope. Tie the knots tight so he'll never shake loose. Then dunk that dumb speck in the bezel nut juice. Horton fought back with great vigor and vim, but the Wickersham gang was too many for him. They beat him, they mauled him, they started to haul him into his cage, but he managed to call to the mayor, don't give up, I believe in you all. A person's a person, no matter how small. And you very small persons will not have to die if you make yourselves heard. So come on now and try. The mayor grabbed a tom-tom. He started to smack it, and all over Whoville they whooped up a racket. They rattled tin kettles, they beat on brass pans, on garbage pail tops and old cranberry cans. They blew on bazookas and blasted great toots on clarinets, oompas and boompas and flutes. Oh, they're making a noise now. Can you hear it now? Can you hear the music? Great gusts of loud racket rang high through the air. They rattled and shook the whole sky, and the mayor called up through the howling mad hullabaloo, "Hey, Horton, how's this? Is our sound coming through?" And Horton called back, "I can hear you just fine, but the kangaroo's ears aren't as strong quite as mine. They don't hear a thing. Are you sure all your boys are doing their best? Are they all making noise? Are you sure every Who down in Whoville is working? Quick, look through your town. Is there anyone shirking?" That means shirking means they're not doing their job. They're not doing their best. Through the town rushed the mayor from the east to the west, but everyone seemed to be doing his best. Everyone seemed to be yapping or yipping. Everyone seemed to be beeping or bipping. But it wasn't enough, all this ruckus and roar. He had to find someone to help him make more. He raced through each building. He searched floor to floor. And just as he felt he was getting nowhere and almost about to give up in despair, he suddenly burst through a door, and that mayor discovered one shirker quite hidden away in the Fairfax Apartments, apartment 12J. A very small shirker named Jojo was just standing and bouncing a yo-yo. Not making a sound, not a yip, not a chirp. And the mayor rushed inside and he grabbed the young twerp. And he climbed with the lad up the Ethelberg Tower. "This," cried the mayor, "is your town's darkest hour. The time for all Whos who have blood that is red to come to the aid of their country," he said. "We've got to make noises in greater amounts, so open your mouth, lad, for every voice counts." Thus he spoke as he climbed. When they got to the top, the lad cleared his throat and he shouted out, "Yop!" And that yop, that one small extra yop, put it over. Finally, at last, from that speck on that clover, their voices were heard. They rang out clear and clean, and the elephant smiled. "Do you see what I mean? They've proved they are persons, no matter how small, and their whole world was saved by the smallest of all." "How true, yes, how true," said the big kangaroo. "And from now on, you know what I'm planning to do. From now on, I'm going to protect them with you." And the young kangaroo in her pouch said, "Me too. From sun in the summer, from rain when it's fallish, I'm going to protect them, no matter how smallish." The end. Isn't that a great story? Oh, the small ones, they couldn't be heard. Finally, they were, because everybody was doing their job. Everybody was. And one theme in this book I want to point out: everyone's a person, no matter how small. All right, do we have any little ones watching today? I know there were a couple that were coming on, but maybe they weren't able to make it and they'll watch later. I just wanted to shout out their names and say hello. And thank you for joining me today. All right, I have one other book that I want to read. I wanted to really make it worth your while coming to be with me today during story time. This book is called The Oak Inside the Acorn by Max Lucado. He is another great author. He writes adult books, Christian books, and he also writes some children's stories. And this is one that I absolutely love. So let's go on another adventure, shall we? Okay. The acorn looked at the world around him. Green hills rolled their backs in the distance. Bright daisies bloomed below him. Above him, a family of puffy white clouds floated through the blue sky. The world looks so big, the little acorn said to his mother. I'm just glad to be right here with you. His mother was a tall, beautiful oak tree. I'm glad too, my little acorn. It's good for you to be here with me now. But when your time comes to go into the world, you'll be fine. I'll be afraid. Mother Oak hugged the little acorn in her strong branches. Within you is a great oak, little acorn. Just be the tree God made you to be. Oh, I see. I'm going to stop for a minute. Arrington and Lily, y'all are on. Hi. All right, I'm glad y'all have joined us. Let's finish this adventure, okay? The thought of letting go and leaving the safety of his mother's branches was scary to little Acorn, so he tried not to think about it. But deep down inside, he knew the time was coming. One by one, his brothers and sisters had been letting go and saying goodbye. They had been afraid too, but their mother had assured them with the same words, "Within you is a great oak. Just be the tree God made you to be." Each time he heard this, little Acorn would look at himself and say, "An oak? In me?" He was so small it was hard for him to believe he could ever be a tree. The time to let go came sooner than little Acorn wanted. It started with a bump. He was resting one summer afternoon, thankful for the coolness and the shadow of the leaves, when thud, the tree shook. Y'all shake for me? Yeah, it shook. His mother's branches trembled, and little Acorn began to swing back and forth. A farmer's pickup had accidentally backed into the tree trunk. Little Acorn had swung before, stirred by the wind, bumped by climbing kids, and each time he'd always held on. But not this time. He tried. He pressed his thin stem into the branch as hard as he could. It didn't work. He was a heavier acorn than he used to be, and his stem began to pull away from the branch. "Uh-oh, Mom!" "It's okay, little acorn," Mother Oak assured him. "You can't hang on forever. It's time. You've got to let go." Down he fell, flipping over and over, softly slipping through the leaves until he bounced on something hard. He had landed in the back of the pickup truck. The truck vibrated and began to drive away. "It's okay, little acorn," his mom called out. "Within you is a great oak. Just be the tree God made you to be." Little Acorn barely heard the last few words. The truck was already moving down the road, going somewhere. He just didn't know where. As the truck bounced, so did the acorn. "Ouch," he said. "This is rough." "It gets better," he heard a voice say. Rolling over, little Acorn looked up at a young tree. "Who are you?" he asked. "I'm a new little orange tree on my way to be planted." "What do orange trees do?" asked the acorn. By now the road and the ride were smoother. "We grow oranges." "Oh," answered the acorn. He didn't know what an orange was and was just about to ask when the truck slowed to a stop. "Wow!" exclaimed Orange Tree, who was tall enough to see out of the truck. "What is it?" asked the acorn. "Trees, orange trees everywhere. It's an orange grove." It's an orange grove. Orange grove is a field, a piece of land where there are just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of orange trees. "Okay, little orange tree, it's time for you to be planted," the farmer said as he lowered the truck tailgate and climbed into the back of the truck. The acorn rolled away just in time to avoid the farmer's big boot. The farmer took the tree and was gone for a long time. Little Acorn stared at the sky as it began to darken. He missed his mother oak and her strong branches. This would be his first night away from her. The tailgate banged and the farmer jumped in. "A quick sweep," he said, "and I'm headed home." Little Acorn had never seen a broom. He barely saw this one before it sent him high in the air. He landed in soft dirt. I wondered what happened to you. It was Orange Tree. Little Acorn was happy to hear a familiar voice. Is this your new home? It sure is, Orange Tree said, and it looks like it's your home too. Little Acorn had one more question. Orange Tree, what do I do next? Orange Tree's voice was sleepy. Just settle in, my friend, and rest. God will make you grow. And so Little Acorn did just that. He rested. That night, the next day, that week, the next month, there in the soft soil surrounded by orange trees, he sank deeper and deeper into the ground and slumbered. He slept a long, long time. When Little Acorn awoke, he didn't know where he was. He stretched upward. Can you stretch? And when he did, he kept stretching higher and higher until he popped out of the dark dirt into the sunlight. Well, look who's awake, announced Orange Tree. Little Acorn looked around and then up. Hello, Orange Tree. Have I been sleeping long? Long enough to become a small tree. Little Acorn looked down at himself and said, I've changed. His round shell was now a slender trunk. You are growing up, Orange Tree said. Now you are a little oak. Little Oak straightened himself and remembered his mother's words. Within you is a great oak. Maybe she was right, he thought, and he stood a little bit taller. See that acorn? Ooh, where am I? Became that oak. Look, right there. Goodness gracious, who knew that that little oak tree was inside that little bitty acorn? But even at his tallest, he was much smaller than the big orange trees. Their bushy branches grew greener and greener. Then one day, Orange Tree called out to his friend, Little Oak, look, my first orange. The big orange trees spoke up. He'll have many more, they said. So will I, announced Little Oak. The trees in the grove laughed. They didn't mean to hurt Little Oak's feelings, but they did. Wonder why they would laugh. Because an oak tree doesn't grow oranges. You'll never have oranges, they said, chuckling. Little Oak straightened his branches and pushed as hard as he could. But no oranges popped out. Not that day, nor the next, nor the next. When the farmer came to collect the fruit, Little Oak was worried. He had none to give. Well, hello, Little Oak, the farmer greeted. How did you get here? The farmer walked away, and when he returned, he carried a big shovel. I know just the place for you. He lifted the new little oak tree out of the ground. Bye-bye, my friend, said Orange Tree. Look at that tree that came out of the acorn. Look at that. That's awesome. The farmer didn't take Little Oak too far away. He carried him out of the grove to his big white house. The farmer chose a spot in the backyard overlooking the orange grove. Let's see how you do here, he said. Then he dug a deep hole and set Little Oak inside it. He placed dirt around Little Oak and pressed it tightly around the tree's roots. Little Oak liked his new home. For the first time, he stood taller than almost everything around him. Little Oak got a new home. Little Oak was stretching his roots into the dirt when he heard, Hi, I'm Pink Petunia. Who are you? Little Oak looked at the bright flower near the house. He started to answer, but Pink Petunia didn't give him time. Rosie is next to the house. Hi there, chirped Rosie. Daisy is here too. That's me, said a white and yellow flower. Hello, little tree. Pink Petunia continued, We are soft and smell sweet. What about you? Little Oak didn't know how to answer. He knew he had no oranges. Do you grow flowers? Pink Petunia asked. Little Oak never remembered seeing flowers like roses or petunias on his mother, but still, maybe oaks did grow flowers. Maybe I could. Maybe that is what I'm made to do, he answered. So he tried. As hard as he could, little Oak tried to grow flowers like his friends could grow. As the sun grew hotter, they unfolded into a rainbow of pinks, reds, and yellows. Little Oak, however, just grew taller. As the days grew longer, his roots grew deeper. Every day he tried to grow colorful flowers, but he never could. Pink Petunia could, so could Rosie, so could Daisy, but not Little Oak. All right, let's see here. Here's the red roses, Rosie, and here are the daisies, and down here at the bottom you got the pink petunias. Okay. Finally, Little Oak decided to rest. His branches were tired and drooping. His leaves were dropping. Even the flowers were sleepy. We're going to rest now, Little Oak, the flowers told him, and they did. The sky grayed and the days shortened and the whole garden slept. While Little Oak slept, he dreamed. He dreamed of his days as a little acorn on his mother's branch. Deep in his sleep, he heard her soft voice. Within you is a great oak. Just be the tree God made you to be. When the sun warmed his branches, let me go back. I keep forgetting. I'm sorry. Pictures are important too. Yes. Those illustrations, very important. When the sun warmed his branches, Little Oak awoke. Only he wasn't so little anymore. He could see farther. He had grown taller and wider. The winds didn't bend him as much. His branches were as big as his trunk used to be. Little Oak was becoming Big Oak. Many years passed, and each year he grew bigger and wider and bigger, until everything in the farmer's yard looked up to him. Look at that tree now. All right, I'm on a computer and I'm going backwards. Aha, there you are. There's the tree. I got to get used to that. That tree's growing bigger. Look. In spring, summer, winter, fall, he keeps growing and growing and growing. Look how big he is now. Now, Orange Tree and the flowers called him Big Oak. He spread his big branches and looked around. Orange Tree was taller too, but not as tall as Big Oak. Big Oak was taller than all of his friends. They were wide, but not as wide as Big Oak. He was the tallest. He was the widest, but he still wondered what he was supposed to do. He couldn't grow oranges or flowers. He just grew bigger, and he didn't know why. Remember, that tree came out of that little bitty acorn. Big Oak was just awakening from a long winter's nap. His leaves, tiny buds, when a young farmer brought 2 ropes and tied them to one of his strong branches. Close by, a little girl watched. Rosie Rose was puzzled. "What's it for, Big Oak?" "I don't know," Big Oak answered, but he soon found out. "Can I do it, Daddy? Can I swing?" "Go ahead," urged the man, and the little girl with bright blue eyes and hair the color of Daisy's flowers sat in the swing. Big Oak felt the tug, but barely. He was strong, and little girl was small. With her daddy's help, she swung forward, not too far, but farther the next day and farther the next. Look at that. A beautiful swing in that oak tree. By the time the sun was hot and the flowers were plenty, she could swing alone, kicking her feet higher and higher until she could see the roof of her house. Then back she would swing back until she seemed to look straight at the ground. Big Oak loved the sound of little girl's laughter, her footsteps running toward him, her squeals of delight as she swung higher and higher into the sky. Yes, Big Oak loved little girl. When she swung, he stood strong. When her daddy built her a treehouse in Big Oak's branches, Big Oak gladly held it. When little girl stretched out on the grass to watch the clouds float, Big Oak shaded her. She played in his branches, climbed his trunk, rested in his shadow, and together they grew. Each year both taller, each year both stronger. When gray skies brought cold days, Big Oak slept and the swing hung silent and the playhouse stayed empty. When blue skies brought warm days, they laughed and played. Little Girl talked and he listened. And at last Big Oak knew he had become the tree God made him to be. One day, Little Girl came to Big Oak with a little boy, though neither was too little. They sat on his branches and talked. Big Oak held them both, and when they carved their names on his trunk, he didn't mind. Little boy pushed the swing, Little Girl laughed, and Big Oak protected them from the sudden rain. In time, Little Girl didn't swing so much. When she climbed into the treehouse, she sat more and played less. Little Girl was becoming Big Girl. Big Girl now stood as tall as Big Oak's lowest branch. One day Rosie Rose said to Big Oak, "She's growing up, Big Oak. She'll soon leave." Big Oak didn't answer, but he understood. Big Girl spent many blue sky days sitting on the ground, leaning back against Big Oak's trunk and watching the clouds drift by. Big Oak knew Big Girl had a big question on her mind because she said things like, "I don't know what I'm supposed to be," and "It's hard to let go," and "How can I know who I am?" Big Oak wanted to talk to Big Girl. He knew just what to say. He would say, "Within you is a great girl. Just be the person God made you to be." Orange trees grow oranges, he would say. Flower plants grow flowers, and oaks grow tall enough for swings and strong enough for swinging and big enough to hold little girls until they become big girls. He wanted to, but he couldn't say the words. One day, Big Girl was so sad. The little girl who used to giggle in Big Oak's shade just sat, silent tears flowing down her cheeks. "It's hard to let go," she said. Big Oak was listening, and he had an idea. He looked down his branch at a little acorn. "I have a special job for you," Big Oak said. The next time the wind blew his branches, Big Oak let this branch shake more than the others. The little acorn popped loose and landed in Big Girl's lap. Big Girl picked it up and started to toss it away, but stopped. She held the little acorn in her hand and stared at it. She turned and looked up at Big Oak. "Were you ever this small?" Answering her own question, she continued, "Of course you were. You grew into a great oak from a little acorn. All you did was become what God made you to be." She looked again at the acorn, then back at the tree. Her eyes brightened. "Do you suppose that's what God wants me to do?" Big Oak wanted to shout yes, but he didn't have to. Big Girl stood and announced, "Of course he does. Now it's time for me to let go and become the person God made me to be." Big Girl smiled, placed the acorn in her pocket, and began walking away. But after a few steps, she stopped and turned. She looked at the swing, the treehouse. She looked at Big Oak. She walked over to him and placed a hand on his trunk. Without a word, she said, "Goodbye." Without a word, Big Oak said the same. Awesome, awesome. Just be the tree God made you to be. In the first book, and I didn't realize these books kind of went hand in hand. In one book, it's telling you that a person is a person no matter how small. You are important too, and you have a voice. And this book is telling you that there is greatness inside of you no matter how small you are. There's greatness inside of you. And you can grow and be whatever God intended for you to be. There's a Bible verse that I love to use with my students, Philippians 4:13. "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." And I want you to remember that no matter how young you are, no matter how old you are, you can do anything that God gives you strength for, and He will. I am so thankful that you joined me today. I will. I am planning to be back Friday at 11. I will post it for sure to make you aware on my timeline. But I'm looking to be back Friday at 11. So I will look forward to seeing you there. I want to close with this. How about let's close this way? Story time, story time. We're all done with story time. We took an adventure, we took a trip. We grabbed a book and zippity zipped. We took an adventure, we took a trip during our story time. Bye, friends.